Good day, family, and welcome back to another explosive breakdown of Homecoming. If you thought last week's episode was heavy, today's installment somehow manages to raise the bar even further. We are talking betrayal, we are talking heartbreak, we are talking a wedding that fell apart in the most humiliating way possible, and the headline you've all been waiting for, the Shobain body parts scandal finally starts to unravel. Grab your tea, sit back, and let's get into it, because there is a lot to unpack. We open this episode back at the clinic, and honestly, the atmosphere alone tells you something is wrong before a single word is spoken. The lighting, the hushed conversations in the hallway, the way staff avoid eye contact with each other, the show's directors did a brilliant job setting the tone. It's become impossible to ignore the whispers that have been building for weeks, that somewhere inside this clinic, medical resources are not being used the way they should be, and that Shobain is at the center of it. This episode gives us our clearest look yet at just how deep this goes. We see Shobain speaking in code about resources that are needed urgently, and when pressed on what exactly he means, he deflects, talks about ambulances, about equipment shortages, about the community not having enough. On the surface, it sounds like the concerns of a dedicated community health worker. But viewers who have been paying attention know better. This is the same Shobain who has been evasive for episodes now, the same Shobain who disappears for hours with no explanation, the same Shobain whose name keeps getting mentioned whenever something goes missing. What makes this particular storyline so uncomfortable to watch is how ordinary it all looks from the outside. Nobody at the clinic is shouting thief or criminal. It's all couched in the language of care, of community service, of doing what's best for the people. That's what makes Shobain such a chilling character this season. He doesn't come across as a villain twirling a mustache. He comes across as a man who has convinced himself, and is trying to convince everyone around him, that whatever he is doing is justified. Whether that justification holds up once the full truth comes out is a different story entirely, and if this episode is anything to go by, that truth is coming faster than he'd like. Matron has clearly had enough. In one of the episode's strongest scenes, she confronts Shobain directly, and there's real pain in her voice when she tells him how disappointed she is in him. This isn't a colleague accusing a colleague. This is someone who trusted him, who vouched for him, who is now watching that trust crumble in real time. She doesn't accuse him outright of anything specific, but her tone makes it clear, she knows something isn't right, and she is done pretending otherwise. This confrontation matters because Matron has been one of the few consistently principled characters this season. If she is losing faith in Shobain, that's the show telling us, loud and clear, that we should be too. Her disappointment isn't dramatic for the sake of drama, it lands because we've watched her hold this clinic together through crisis after crisis, and now the person she trusted most to help her carry that weight might be the one putting the whole operation at risk. Meanwhile, across town, the Nkwanyana family drama takes an ugly turn. It's revealed this episode that Nkwanyana has been the target of a scam, and not just any scam, but one that has left her badly shaken and now sitting in a police station trying to report what happened to her. The details are still coming out, but what we do know is that someone close to her exploited her trust to try to access money that was never theirs to touch. This is where the episode does something clever, it ties two separate storylines together through a shared theme of exploitation. On one side, we have Shobain potentially exploiting his medical position for personal gain. On the other, we have someone exploiting Nkwanyana's vulnerability for financial gain. The show is clearly building toward a season where trust, who deserves it, who abuses it, is the central question running through nearly every relationship on screen. Namalanga's involvement in this thread adds another layer of tension. She has placed a great deal of trust in Nkwanyana when it comes to handling money, and there is a growing sense among viewers that this trust may not be well placed. Nkwanyana has not exactly demonstrated sound judgment in past episodes, and with money now on the line, there's real reason to worry that things could go badly for everyone involved. It wouldn't be the first time on this show that good intentions and financial pressure combined to produce a disaster nobody saw coming until it was too late. If you needed another example of trust being weaponized this episode, look no further than Mr. Longwain. This storyline hits differently because it's not framed as some elaborate criminal conspiracy, it's framed as something far more common and far more painful, a husband quietly manipulating his own wife for money. We learn that Mr. Longwain has been misleading his wife, presenting himself as someone with her best interest at heart while working behind the scenes to get his hands on funds she had set aside, seemingly with the future in mind. His wife wanted to save, he wanted to spend, or worse, wanted access to everything at once. The imbalance here is stark, and the writers do a good job of making his wife's frustration feel earned rather than exaggerated. She isn't written as naive, she's written as someone slowly realizing that the man she married may not be who she thought he was, and that realization is delivered with real weight. This subplot might not carry the same shock value as the clinic scandal, but in some ways it's more unsettling, because it's the kind of betrayal that happens in real homes, away from cameras and headlines. It's a reminder that Homecoming's strongest moments often come not from its biggest twists, but from its quietest, most human ones. Vousi's storyline continues to be one of the more tragic threads of the season. This episode shows him increasingly out of control, and it's clear the writers want us to see this as a man being driven, whether by grief, by guilt, or by something else entirely, toward a place he can't easily come back from. There are strong hints that alcohol is playing a growing role in his unraveling, and the show doesn't shy away from showing the consequences of that. What's particularly striking is how Vousi's behavior seems to be pulling him toward Onkobo's orbit, and not in a good way. There's a suggestion that Vousi's next move might affect Onkobo directly, though the specifics are left deliberately vague for now, clearly setting up a cliffhanger for next week. Whatever direction this goes, it doesn't look like it's heading anywhere good, and longtime viewers will recognize the warning signs. When Homecoming starts building a character up like this, episode after episode, it's really building toward redemption in the short term. It's building toward a breaking point. Speaking of Onkobo, this episode delivers one of its most emotionally charged confrontations yet between her and Shobain. Their marriage, already strained, reaches a new low when Shobain, in a moment of raw anger, tells her that if she doesn't want to see more of him, she should leave the house right then and there. It's a brutal line, delivered with real venom, and Onkobo's response, quietly asking what exactly she's supposed to have done, lands like a gut punch. There's a moment where it looks like things could turn physical, and while Shobain ultimately doesn't raise his hand against her, the mere suggestion of it is enough to change how we see him. Even the thought of it, even him getting that close to the line, is enough to unsettle. It's a powerful piece of writing because it doesn't rely on the act itself to make its point, the tension and the implication do all the work, and it's genuinely uncomfortable to watch, in the way the writers clearly intended. What makes this whole situation more frustrating is the reveal that Shobain was manipulated into distrusting his wife in the first place. Someone fed him a version of events, likely doctored or exaggerated, and instead of giving Onkobo the benefit of the doubt, he chose to believe the worst about her. By the time the truth starts coming out, real damage has already been done, and it's fair to ask whether this marriage can actually recover from it. A man who won't stand by his wife, who won't defend her, who chooses suspicion over trust at the first opportunity, that's a hard thing to walk back from, no matter how sincere the apology that follows. Forced out of his own home, Shobain ends up sleeping at a salon, which, depending on how you look at it, is either a small moment of comic relief in an otherwise heavy episode, or a fitting bit of humiliation for a man who brought this entirely on himself. On the family front, tensions boil over between Onkobo and her daughter Kondikul, culminating in Onkobo disciplining her after yet another incident of bad behavior. The show has been building Kondikul up as a difficult, at times seemingly ungovernable child for several episodes now, and this confrontation feels like it's been a long time coming. What's interesting is how conflicted the narrative feels about this. On one hand, there's clear sympathy for Onkobo, a mother at the end of her rope, dealing with a child who seems determined to push every boundary placed in front of her. On the other hand, there's a lingering sense that Kondikul's behavior might not simply be defiance for its own sake, that there could be something deeper going on that hasn't been fully addressed yet. Whether the show intends to explore that further, or whether Kondikul is simply being written as a difficult child for the sake of family drama, remains to be seen. Either way, this is clearly a relationship under serious strain, and it doesn't look like it's getting fixed anytime soon. And now, the moment that will likely dominate group chats and social media timelines for the rest of the week, Zethu's shocking decision at the wedding altar. After everything, after the build-up, after the anticipation, after Shobain's clear emotional investment in this relationship, Zethu chooses, at the literal altar, to refuse to go through with the marriage. The timing here is what makes it so devastating. This isn't a quiet conversation weeks before the ceremony. This is a public, humiliating rejection in front of family, friends, and community, delivered at the exact moment everyone expected a yes. Many viewers will have sympathy for Zethu's underlying reasons. It's clear she is still not over Faiso, and marrying someone else while carrying that unresolved grief would arguably have been the more dishonest choice. But the way she chose to handle it, waiting until the actual ceremony to make her feelings known, is difficult to defend. She had time. She had opportunities. A private conversation days or even hours before the wedding would have spared Shobain this level of public humiliation, and it's hard not to feel that Zethu chose the path that caused the most damage, whether she intended to or not. Shobain's heartbreak in the aftermath is genuinely hard to watch. This is a man who, whatever his flaws elsewhere in the storyline, did not deserve to be humiliated in front of his entire community. And in true homecoming fashion, his response to that heartbreak is to drown his sorrows entirely, setting up what looks like another difficult chapter for a character who was already carrying more than his share of burdens this season. There's also a broader question the show seems to be raising here about Matron's role in all of this. Some viewers online have already started pointing fingers at Matron, suggesting that her earlier interference in Shobain and Zethu's relationship helped set the stage for this outcome. Whether that's a fair read or simply fans looking for someone to blame, it's clear the fallout from this wedding is going to ripple through multiple relationships in the episodes ahead. Bringing it back to the title of this review, the body parts storyline is clearly the thread the writers are using to tie everything else together. Every subplot this episode, from Shobain's clinic secrecy to Nhwanyana's scam to Mr. Longwen's financial manipulation, revolves around exploitation of trust in one form or another. It feels intentional. It feels like the show is building toward a moment where all of these smaller betrayals converge into one much larger reveal, and Shobain sits right at the center of it. The clues so far point towards something happening inside that clinic that goes well beyond ordinary resource shortages, something involving unauthorized procedures, missing supplies, and a network of people either complicit or willfully looking away. Matron's suspicion, the community's whispered concerns, and Shobain's increasingly cagey behavior all suggest the truth is coming, and coming soon. The only real question left is how many people get caught in the fallout when it finally does. This was, without question, one of the more emotionally exhausting episodes Homecoming has given us this season, and that's meant as a compliment. Every storyline, the clinic, the scam, the marriage, the wedding, carried real weight, and none of them felt like filler. The writers clearly know exactly where they're taking this season, and they're not wasting a single scene getting there. If next week's episode delivers even half the fallout this one set up, we are in for something special. Shobain's secrets are close to spilling out into the open, Shwabi and Onkobo's marriage is teetering on collapse, Vousi looks like he's heading somewhere dangerous, and Zethu has just detonated a bomb she may not be able to walk back from. That's it for this week's review, family. Let me know in the comments who you think is most at fault this episode. Is it Shobain, Zethu, Shwabi, or Mr. Longwen? And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for next week's breakdown, because something tells me it's going to be even bigger. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other.